What's up guys, Mitchell Watts, Town & Country TV, and today we're going to go over 5 different things you need to consider before buying or even building a lifted truck. The first thing on this list is going to be something that you probably never thought about, and that is to retorque the suspension after at least 5,000 miles of driving. You understand that when you are building a lift truck or buying a lifted truck, they replace all of the suspension components underneath the vehicle, and with that comes, they retorque everything back down to spec, but think about it, bumps, off-roading, things like that can cause some of the parts to come untorqued. And so it's very, very important that after 5,000 miles that you retorque the suspension. Side note, Southern Comfort, if you buy a Southern Comfort vehicle, they automatically pay for you to have that done for free, no extra cost. The next thing on this list is going to be something you may have not thought about, and that is going to be the wheels. As you probably can tell by the exhaust note anyway, I'm driving a 2018 Ford F-150. This is an STX model with the Apex package. So it's got a 6-inch lift. It's a FabTech lift. It's got 35-inch BFG ATKO2 tires. And the thing that I wanted to talk about right now is going to be the wheels. These are 20-inch wheels, and they're made by Southern Comfort. And they have more of an offset than the factory does, which actually pushes the wheels and the tires out a little bit further. The 20-inch wheels are not nearly as bad as the offset on the 22s. They push them out even further. And if you think about that, the farther that wheel goes outside from the main part of the truck, the more that tire has to swing as it's turning left and right. And so with that being, you'll actually notice a slight difference between a 20 and a 22-inch wheel, or in this situation, a wheel that has a larger offset as it pushes them out further. It's just that every one of the 22-inch wheel that we do actually has a larger offset. The closer your offset is to factory, the more like factory the truck will drive. But then again, it doesn't look as nice because it doesn't make it as wide. Next, let's talk about the tires, because this can make a huge difference in the way your truck is going to handle. Now, keep in mind, this truck, as I've already mentioned, is a Southern Comfort. It's got the 20-inch wheel, and it's got the BFG ATKO2 tires, which if we've got a 20-inch wheel and a 35-inch tire, it's almost always that we're going to put a BFG on there. Now, the reason for that is because the on-road drivability of these tires are fantastic. There's almost zero roaring in the tires, and it's got really good performance off-road. My personal F-150 has got these tires on them. It's a smaller wheel, but side note. My personal 1995 Bronco that I have the original BFG ATKO, not the 2s, but the original ones on there. I'm a big fanboy of BFG ATKO tires, but I do have to tell you, because I believe in just being transparent, that I've had a lot of people that complain about the tire tread life on these tires when they're towing something heavy, that the tread life is not exactly where it needs to be. Now, I personally don't tow anything, and so I'm personally getting fantastic mileage out of my tires, both on the Bronco and the F-150 that I own. But once again, if you're towing something very heavy, just know that you're not going to get 40, 50, 60,000 miles out of this very aggressive all-terrain tire. And if tread life is something that's important to you, forget a mud terrain. This little section's not intended to bash a specific tire or to pump up a specific tire, because we also put Toyo tires on our trucks. We also put some Nittos on our trucks, and there's some serious price differences and some serious drivability differences. What I would recommend that you do is try and drive a little bit of everything, because we carry just about every single option on our lot at any point in time, and if anybody wants a free test drive, just come on in. We'll be happy to test drive it with you, that kind of a thing. But it's important to know what you're getting into before you get into it. Next up, let's talk about gear ratio. Now, if you already have a truck and you're considering lifting it, this section might be a little irrelevant to you unless you're planning on swapping out the gear ratios. This primarily is saying, hey, I'm gonna build a custom truck off of a brand new chassis, and I get to choose whatever I want. The reason I brought that up is because a customer who's turned into a really good friend of mine, his name is Henry. I'm not going to call out exactly what his last name is, because that's not the point here, but he had a really good conversation with me about what it looks like as far as gear ratios are concerned. He's going to be towing a boat. He wants to make sure that the truck has plenty of pep, but he also wants to make sure he's not annihilating his fuel economy. Now, we're talking about specifically the 10-speed transmission that's found in the 18 model. If you think about 17 and before, those have a 6-speed transmission. And the reason I tell you that is because those two transmissions will cause the trucks to have two totally different final drive ratios. Now, if I'm getting a little too advanced, hear me out for just a second. The more aggressive the final drive ratio is, the more pep the truck will have in pulling or acceleration, that kind of a thing. The downside to that is your RPMs are going to be higher on the interstate, so it's going to affect your fuel economy slightly. Now, the reason I say all of that is because in the old body style truck, if someone was building a lift truck, I would say 100% of the time they need a 3.73 gear ratio because of that 6-speed transmission. It still had plenty of pep. The fuel economy was okay. It was, in my opinion, the best all around. Now that the 10-speed has come out, Ford has even come around with trainers and said, hey, for the customer that thought they needed a 3.73 gear ratio, which by the way is the most aggressive that Ford offers from the factory, the people that thought they needed a 3.73 now can probably get away with a 3.55. Coincidentally, that's what's in this truck right now. Now, it depends on what you're doing. If you're going to be pulling a 9,000-pound Bobcat every single day, you might want to consider that 3.73. But for that person that's going to be towing that 3,000-pound boat, you're going to want to maybe consider a 3.55. Regardless of how you go, if you're putting a 6-inch lift and 35s, I would not recommend a 3.15 gear ratio in the 5.0 V8. Keep in mind, if you're going to custom build a truck on an EcoBoost, those engines act very differently than a 5.0 V8, and you need to consider that when you're selecting your final drive ratio when it comes to your gear ratios. The final thing we want to talk about is going to be probably the most important. That is choosing the right lift kit for you. In full disclosure, we are a dealership located in Birmingham, Alabama, and we are a dealer of Southern Comfort, and all they put on their trucks are FabTech lifts. So this is not a bash from one lift kit to another. That's not what this is about. It's simply to know the differences. Now, we sell FabTechs through Southern Comfort, and that's important to know because Southern Comfort used to install ProComp lifts on all of their vehicles. Henry, the guy we were talking about just a second ago, he actually drove this exact same truck with a ProComp lift and then drove our FabTech right after that. And one of the things that he noted that I didn't realize until after I was dealing with him is that ProComp and FabTech both, they put steering stops on their vehicle. So that way, if you turn the steering wheel all the way, you can only turn it so far, and they do that to make sure that the tires don't rub on the inside of the suspension. So I hope that makes sense to you. But I've noticed, and especially after talking to him, that FabTech, their steering stops are not as aggressive as ProComp, which means that you have a tighter turning radius on a FabTech lift than you do a ProComp. Now, I have not looked at all the other manufacturers, but that's something you want to consider when you're doing your lift kit. Not just price, not just the ease or complexity of installing the lift, but you also need to consider things like the turning radius. How far can you turn the steering wheel without actually getting into trouble? And there you have it. That is our quick 5 things that you need to know before either buying or building a custom lift truck. We hope you found this video useful. And once again, we never use this channel to sell you anything. But if you want to take a look at some of our lift trucks, we'll have that link down in the description below. If you have any questions about anything we've talked about, make sure to leave those in the comments below. And if you want to follow me personally on Instagram, where I post photos of every cool truck and car that I can find, including this one, make sure to follow me on Instagram. My handle is listed down below. It's Mitchell S. Watts, and I'd love to interact with you guys there. Thank you so much for watching this video, and have a great day.